All right, let's go check in on the Eagles and Geoff Mosher here, FanRag Sports Eagles beat writer. And, man, there's a lot going on with this team, Geoff, as it seems like every year, every week, something happens with this team. Whether they're good or bad, this team just always seems to have something going on. I want to start with you with Zach Ertz and his comments. Sunday, he seemingly said, we can't be throwing the ball 40 times. He rhetorically asked, how many times did we throw the ball? The media said 46, and he said that's not ideal. Yesterday, he backtracked and actually took offense to the fact that you guys made it out like he questioned the head coach, to where he said, we did not have an ideal situation. At no point did we have a really good chance. So did somebody get to Zach Ertz, do you think?
Oh, I would have to think so. I actually didn't even hear Zach backtrack on that, but I thought what he said after the game was very candid. I mean, he clearly asked exactly how many times.
I think we lost Geoff there. As he was saying, he clearly asked how many times did we throw the ball, right? That was what Geoff was kind of saying there, as we'll try to get Geoff back on the line there. It looks like we just got disconnected. All right, we got Geoff back. We lost you right there where he said he clearly asked how many times they threw the ball.
Yeah, so when he was informed that it was, 47 times, I mean, he clearly candidly said that that's not a recipe for winning a lot of games over the long haul in the NFL, and he was right. So I'm sure, I don't understand how you can misinterpret those comments, especially when the context of the conversation of the question was about throwing the ball that much and if that's detrimental to success. So I guess somebody got to him, or either that or he realized the next day when people used that quote as an example of why it's perilous to try to throw the ball that many times and expect your team to succeed and your quarterback to stay upright. He probably didn't like being the leader or one of the leaders of that kind of brigade saying that we can't throw the ball this much. So it looked like he came out and questioned the head coach, which, indirectly he did, but he wasn't the only one.
Yeah, he said, I would never second coach the coach. The opportunity never presented itself to run the ball. Because we were down, we ended up having to throw the ball, and he said it by number, 17 straight times. It was almost like he was giving a dig back to them because they came to him and said, yo, buddy. So he was digging back in his apology almost.
Yeah. As you mentioned, Mike, there's always something with this team, right? I mean, it's funny because I think to most people, at least to me, I thought they played overall a good game in Kansas City. They were there. It was 6-3 at half. They were winning in the third quarter. Kansas City made more big plays. They have more big play players, I think, and they were home, and they're off to a very good start. And I think that was the difference in the game more so than the run-pass ratio was. But nonetheless, the run-pass ratio is a really important issue for the team going forward. It's been, an issue for the past, and I think that, it's hard. The team comes back 1-1 from a tough 2 games, 2 opening road games, and yet we're still kind of talking about something that we see as really problematic for them.
Geoff Mosher, FanRag Sports, covers the Eagles. They appear to be benching Isaac Seumalo. You said, or Doug said, I should say, that, hey, he's fine. He's done an outstanding job.
He said that.
Don't hit the
said
panic
that
button.
On Monday, and then by yesterday, look who was out there taking reps with the ones.
Unreal, isn't it? I mean, it's really not unreal because we've heard the coach, say one thing. I mean, we can go through a litany of things Peterson has said, and then literally the next day they turned out to be not true. Whether it's, Josh Huff is going to be with us going forward, or Jordan Matthews is not going to have a reduced role on the team, or anything like that. So, listen, I know a lot of people support this move. I think a lot of people react and say the guy has been absolutely awful at left guard.
By people, Geoff, by people, do you mean fans, media, or fellow teammates?
Yeah, I'm not. Well, I don't know. I've heard fellow teammates stick up for him, but obviously fans, readers, and media. I know some of the writers out there have said you got to get this guy out of there. I'll die alone on this Isaac Seumalo hill if I have to. He's a rookie. He's a rookie. He's played 2 games. He's played very poorly. But if you yank him out of the lineup now, what kind of precedent are you setting? How does he get a chance to improve? How does he get a chance to get better? And do you now just start yanking guys out of the lineup after 2 games? Carson Wentz struggled for 2 games last year. Anybody want to bench him? So I don't see how it's productive to have a guy who's a 3rd-round pick a guy that you traded away Alan Barber to promote, and you talked about his athleticism, you talked about how well he's played and deserving of the spot, and then yank him after 2 games. If you are a draft and develop team, which the Eagles have said that they want to be and are striving to be, well, the second part of that after drafting is developing. It's their job to coach him up. It's their job to make him better. And they are basically sitting after 2 games, which I don't think is a resume. And by the way, it's 2 road games, 2 silent count games. How about you just help him out, give him some protection, continue to coach him, and let him learn from his mistakes? Because if you're really a draft and development team, that's got to be through thick and thin. That's not just words and a statement. It's a mantra. It's a philosophy. And as soon as you start deviating from that philosophy 2 games into a season, you are pushing the panic button. So I know everybody feels, oh, well, he's getting the quarterback killed. I mean, to assume he's going to get the quarterback killed or that he's going to give up 4 sacks a game for 15 or 16 games is a little bit ridiculous. I'm not saying he deserves to start forever, but 2 games is not a sample. That's not a resume.
Now, Jeff, last year, everybody remembers the Redskins game where Vaitai was like a swinging gate, and they did not remove Vaitai at that point, and Doug, quote-unquote, coached him up, and allegedly he improved, right? But, of course, they had different roster at that point, and Lane Johnson wasn't around, and there were a lot of different scenarios at that point. But is that laying strength to your argument that if you give the guy the coaching that he needs, that you keep him in there, or do you think that they need to make the move?
I think so, Pete. I think so. I mean, I referenced that what you brought up in my article on FanRag Sports. I said, imagine if they had just taken Vaitai out after his first 2 games and never given him a shot again. So let's face it. The Eagles, if you're a fan and you think they're winning the Super Bowl this year, I kind of get your overreactive nature to get everybody who's struggling out now. But this is about a developmental year for a lot of guys, Carson Wentz included, right? They're not winning the Super Bowl.
Hold on. This is what I would say to you, Jeff, though. All right. I understand what you're saying. However, do the Eagles not sense that there's an opportunity here to grab this right now? They have the Giants coming in. They can make them 0-3. And the only thing I would say is, do they view Seumalo as a left guard? And maybe they said, you know what? We tried him at left guard. It's not working. He's a center. And let's just do the change now because this season is salvageable, and we can now develop him in his natural position, which is center.
I mean, do you really think if he can't play left guard, he can play center? I mean, you can either – guys in this league are cross-trained all the time. Last year, Isaac Seumalo came out and played right tackle when Vaitai got hurt, and they played fairly well. He started right tackle.
Maybe he's just a swing guy. Maybe that's who he is, though. Maybe he's just a swing guy. Maybe he's a utility player.
Mike, you're right. Maybe he sucks and he is not an NFL player. You're not going to make that determination after 2 games. It's just impossible. And to say, well, Warmack is there and he was a top 10 pick, I would say, well, he had 4 years to prove he was a top 10 pick. The Titans had their best offensive line ever last year when he was on the bench. So why does he deserve to go in there? He had 4 years. Seumalo had 2 games.
Oh, and look, I could certainly say that you're right about the 2 games that. Oh, he did play last year. I mean, he was moving all over the play last year.
And he played well. And he played well. He played well at right tackle. They ran for 165 yards, I believe, against the Ravens in Baltimore with him playing right tackle.
I just don't know that he's a natural left guard. That's all.
Maybe he's not. Listen, I'm not sitting here planting a flag in the Isaac Seumalo going to the Pro Bowl or Canton or anything like that. I'm just saying think of all the players that you can think of that had a rough 2 games, first 2 games. And remember that he's an offensive lineman, and they rely on the silent count on the road, so it's already difficult to begin with, and he's just playing there for the first time. Now, think of every single player who just played his own natural position and struggled for the 2 games, and what if we just gave up on all of them?
Now, Jeff, one of the points I know that Mike's made over the last week or so, as Seumalo has come up time and time again in conversation, is that they just handed the job to him. Most of the time in the NFL, you earn a starting spot. And when they traded Alan Barber, they just handed him the left guard position. Did you have any trouble with the way that they just anointed him the starter there?
I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, because I feel that I don't know that he was the best guy in training camp, Jeff. I think they gave him that position. Did he win it?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say because they traded Barber on day 1 training camp, right? So, like, it was basically between him and Warmack. But you guys make a good point, but I think you guys also know that in the NFL that is simply not a true statement, that you don't get handed jobs. People get handed jobs based on draft position all the time. I mean, when they traded Sam Bradford, did they go to Chase Daniel, or did they go to the unproven rookie who had never played a game in his life before Carson Wentz? They went to Carson Wentz because he's the future, and he's the guy that they needed to groom and develop. And I feel a third-round pick in the league is very important. A guy like Seumalo is a guy that you hoped is going to be a stalemate on your offensive line, either at center or guard or wherever, a year or 2 or 3 years from now when you're trying to really win a Super Bowl. So, again, I go back to you gave him 2 games. You gave him 2 games, and they cut the cord on him.
All right, let me ask you this then, Moshe.
Wait, hold on one thing.
Yeah.
Wait, I forget Seumalo, okay? What does it say about you as an organization and the precedent that you set when you yank a guy after 2 games, when you claim to want to be a development team, when you claim to have a very good offensive line coach who's supposed to be very good at developing talent? What does that say about you as an organization?
Well, they're having all sorts of problems finding guys as an organization. Geoff Mosher, FanRag Sports.
Go figure.
Let me ask you this then. Let me ask you this. Yes, I mean, well, they draft Douglas in the 3rd round. He's inactive the first week, and the only reason he gets on the field is because how many injuries did they have? So sometimes, even when they draft a guy that looks like, you draft him in the 3rd round, he looks like he can play, he's inactive week number 1. So there's a problem with that, too.
I agree. And listen, I'll go back to Eric Rowe, okay? I'm one person who has always felt that was the dumbest, most reactionary, hasty trade that Howie could have made. You took a guy at a position, you go 12 years before taking a cornerback in the 1st or 2nd round. You finally take one. He's played safety in college for 3 of his 4 years, only 1 year a corner. You're a draft and develop team, so you say you want to be. You give him 1 year, he struggles, the defensive coordinator doesn't like him, and you go freaking trade him. Like,
right.
What does that say about you as your organization? Are you developing talent, or is everybody here to be an all-pro guy from day one, and if not, you're out of here? Oh, I'm sorry, you're not the Patriots. Oh, and by the way, the Patriots like him and started him over Malcolm Butler against the Saints, crazily enough. So that's my point. You've got to stick to your principles. You can't always be reactionary.
That being said, we know your opinion on whether they should. Let me ask you. Do the Philadelphia Eagles have a better shot of winning with Seumalo playing left guard or somebody else on the current roster? And whether that be Warmack or Wisniewski.
I think Wisniewski is probably better center when it's all said and done. He did play left guard at times last year. There were times he looked okay. There were times he didn't look okay. He gave up sacks last year too. So, are they better against the Giants? Warmack is supposed to be a very good run blocker, but not a great pass protector. So I don't know. Is that going to help spring the running game and maybe keep those Eagles out of 3rd and longs? I think the Giant defense is pretty darn good, the defensive line. So if he's a really bad in pass protection too, it's going to wind up exposing him, whether it's on 3rd and 4 or 3rd and 9, right? So I really don't know. I'm sitting here telling you, I have no idea if Warmack or Wisniewski is going to be that much better against this Giants defense.
And that's it's the one thing with Warmack, I guess. I wonder if his offensive line coach, who knew him, went to bat for him a little bit. You think?
Oh, I think that's a huge, huge part of it. But playing favorites is not how it's done in the NFL. If they want, if Stout wanted him in, why didn't he have him in from game 1 on? So does that mean they basically put Seumalo in a position to fail instead of succeed? We're going to throw him in there, even though we really like Warmack better. We'll let him struggle. And then when he, struggles, then we'll throw in Warmack. That doesn't make any sense. If Warmack is ready now, then he probably was ready for the season opener. And if they weren't playing him at the season opener, why not? And I saw a tweet from Shil Kapadia, the Athletic, today, saying that there's money tied to both Blunt incentives, financial incentives for both Warmack and Blunt based on playing time. So if they're playing Warmack and trying to get by with Seumalo because they didn't want to pay Warmack the money from incentives, well, that's a really bad decision.
And then they just sign him to an extension, Warmack?
Well, just 1 year, yeah.
Right, okay. Geoff Mosher, Eagles beat writer, FanRag Sports, and, of course, the Eagles getting ready for the Giants. 0-3, the Giants are staring at it. So you sense Philadelphia knows that they kind of have, maybe not the kill switch here, but a big body blow that they can send to the Giants. You get that sense?
I mean, just think about the difference. This is what's called the high-risk, high-reward type of game, right? If the Eagles win this game, think of all the great – it doesn't even matter. I know some people think that they should go and kill the Giants. Forget it. If they win by 1 point, They are 2-1, and they are 2-0 in the division and 2-0 in the conference. And what a great start that is, right? If they lose the game, they are 1-2. They've got 2 straight losses. They just ruined a chance to choke out the New York Giants, who a lot of people felt going into the year were going to be, including myself, the favorites to win the division. And now you're probably really on the if you're hot under the collar about Doug Peterson now, and you lose this game, it's going to be even worse. There is so much to gain from winning, and so much to fear from losing this game. And I think because of that, it makes this game a very crucial one. And again, division games, they're so unpredictable, Mike Pete. You guys know that. All I say is style points don't matter. I know the Giants stink right now, and they look like you should beat them by 20 points. If you win by 1, it's a great win.
Geoff Mosher with us. Mosher, a minute ago you guys were talking about Steph Wisniewski and Chance Warmack, and I wanted to ask you about Wisniewski specifically because last year at times it was like he was the forgotten man. You kept thinking, well, when's he going to get more playing time? And then you thought he was going to move on from the Eagles after the season was over. They signed him to an extension. Have you been able to get a read on what their feeling is for Wisniewski? Are they high on the guy? Do they just feel like he's a serviceable offensive lineman and they're not too high or too low on him at all? What's your read on how they feel about him and what he brings to the team?
Pete, I think they view him as a really nice bench piece to have. He's a swing interior lineman. They obviously kept Warmack, who's not a swing guy. He can only play guard. Wiz can play center and guard. They signed him to a 3-year deal, gave him that chance to have a guy who can come in and play if needed, but they clearly don't envision him as a long-term starter, or else they would have started him. They signed him to a 3-year deal just to be a really key backup, a 3-year extension, I should say. I mean, nobody wanted him a couple of years ago, other than the Eagles, who got him on a 1-year deal. And he played, at times last year, he played well. At times he didn't play well. So I don't think that they view him at all as a future starter, or at least someone that they want to be starting. They view him as really nice depth to have at 2 positions.
Jeff, your take on the run game. We've had a lot of discussion this week.
What run game?
Yeah, right. Well, we've asked the question a lot of, can they run the ball, or do they choose, or can they not run the ball, or are they choosing not to run the ball? Do they have, I thought, who was it, McClain asked, do you have the talent? And he just said, yes. Usually a one-word answer is a very good indication.
They absolutely can run the ball, Mike. Look at what they did in the first half of the game against the Chiefs. On the road, good front seven. I think they averaged over 5 yards a carry. Sproles was running the ball really well. And by the way, Sproles is way better for their offense as a runner, as a ball carrier, than LeGarrette Blount. Now, you want to talk about scheme issues or talent issues at this point, Blount may be a problem. He may not be talented at this point of his career or good enough to be what they want him to be, but Sproles certainly can. And I can't judge Wendell Smallwood when he has 7 carries in 8 quarters. This is where I go, they choose not to run. As soon as Doug doesn't have like a good first down, he just completely abandons it. And heaven forbid he runs twice, with Wendell Smallwood. Heaven forbid he give his youngest and fast, best fit for the offense 2 carries in a row to let the see. Here's an example. If Wendell gets -2 on first down and it's 2nd and 12, Doug won't think, let's try a different run or a better run or something else and try to pick up 4 or 5 on that and then get ourselves into like 3rd and, what would it be like, 3rd and 7 or 3rd and 8, right? Which is, it's bad, but it's better than 3rd and 12 or 2nd and 12 passing when you know that you're going to pass, right? So he never thinks that. He'll never, ever do that, and I think that that's a big mistake. Now, a lot of people will try to fool you and say, well, Andy Reid only ran, I think, 15 times in that game, which is correct, right? I think Kareem Hunt had 13 carries, and then there were like 2 wide receiver runs, right?
Yeah, they didn't run the ball that much either.
They had 19 fewer snaps than the Eagles, though. So they ran the ball 2 more times on 19 fewer snaps. That's huge. You can't just look at it as apples to apples, how many times each team ran the ball. You have to look at the percentage. The Eagles ran the ball once and every 5 plays. The Chiefs ran it once every 3 plays. That's enormous.
Good point. Geoff Mosher, FanRag Sports, covers the Eagles. He's at Geoff Mosher NFL, and he's with us on Thursdays here on the Sports Batch. Good debate, my friend. Look, it's like old times, going at it.
Oh, I'm hot.
Take care, my man. We'll talk next week.